Quiet Strength, Chapter 20, Race to the Super Bowl. David and Goliath. I thought about that Bible story as I prepared for Wednesday's team meeting before our game against New England. Even though we had beaten the Patriots during the season, I anticipated that we would hear all the reasons we couldn't do it in the playoffs, that it was the regular season, but that this was the postseason, where they play so well and we struggle. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have never lost a conference championship game. They've got so many trophies and playoff wins, and on and on. Again, I reached back and drew on my mother's teachings with an apropos word picture for the team. Most of the Colts had heard the story of David and Goliath before. I wanted the players to remember 3 things that week. So if you are not familiar with the story of David and Goliath from the Bible, in the Bible, David is just a small shepherd boy, and Goliath is this basically giant of a man that the army is all afraid of, and no one wants to go against him. And one day, David is visiting his brothers and bringing them food in the army, and he hears about Goliath. And so he says, okay, yeah, I'll go against him. Right? He's not afraid because he has the Lord on his side. And so he goes against Goliath, not with a sword, but rather with a slingshot. And not only does he kill Goliath, but to make sure that Goliath stays dead, he cuts off Goliath's head. So that's just a quick recap of the story of David and Goliath from the Bible. First, the past has prepared us for what was to come. Although he was only a boy, David tended sheep and protected them from lions and bears. Unlike the Israelite soldiers, he didn't worry about Goliath's size or reputation. He saw the giant through God's eyes, just as another adversary. We had played 3 difficult games in the last 3 weeks: Miami, Kansas City, and Baltimore, and we had won each by playing as a team. We were playing well and had already beaten New England twice in a row, once this season and once last season. God had prepared us with situations both on and off the field, and we shouldn't be intimidated by their reputation. No fear. Second, King Saul tried to outfit David with armor, a helmet, and a sword, but David wasn't comfortable. I don't know how to use these things. I know how to use my slingshot. Similarly, we weren't going to do anything differently to beat the Patriots. We are going to play our same defense and run our same offense. Do what we do. Third, once he hit Goliath in the head with a stone, knocking him to the ground, David didn't take any chances. He took Goliath's sword and cut the giant's head off. Although the analogy isn't politically correct in this day and age, I wanted to make sure that when we got to that critical point in the game, our guys finished the job. I told them to get their swords ready. So he's thinking about the story of David and Goliath as they are preparing for the game against New England. And he says, I wanted the players to remember 3 things that week. First, the past had prepared us for what was to come. Second, do what we do. That's what he always says, right? Don't be fancy. Do what we do, and we'll win. Third, finish the job. My basic message was nothing different than it always has been, just a different way of getting them to remember it. I gave the team one final thought. People will tell you that in the playoffs we have to raise our game to another level, whatever that means. The perception is that New England does this, and that they have such success in the playoffs because they do something special or better. But here's the reality. New England does so well because in the playoffs they play exactly like they play in the regular season. Smart, energetic, passionate, disciplined. And then when the other team gets upright and self-destructs, New England keeps doing what they do. They play the same, day in and day out, play after play after play. Now we have the opportunity to match them, to avoid self-destructing, and do what we do to the end of the game. At our evening meeting on Saturday, I outlined the things we do well and what we needed to do the next afternoon. When I finished, Jeff Saturday, our center and the leader of the team, asked if he could say something. I was happy for him to address the guys. We have 18 guys still with us from the 2003 AFC Championship game, Jeff said. Now we're getting a second chance. The other 35 players from that team are not with us, and they undoubtedly wish they could be here in the conference championship game. This is our team and our time. I know we're going to get it done. The atmosphere in the RCA Dome was electric. After we took the field, the game immediately began like every other playoff game had begun against New England. I had already warned our guys that the Patriots might take some chances to score points early, since we had scored a fair amount on them in the last 2 times out. Sure enough, On a 4th down near midfield, when they might ordinarily have punted, they went for it instead, and Corey Dillon broke a long run. 3 plays later, they fumbled, but the ball went right through our hands and into the end zone, where it was recovered by one of their offensive linemen for a touchdown. We got ourselves in range and kicked a field goal, but then they drove right down the field for another touchdown. 14-3. In our first 2 playoff games, we had not given up a single touchdown in the first half. Now New England already had 2. On the ensuing kickoff, we flirted with disaster when we fumbled, but we were able to recover the ball. We were not playing sound football. 2 plays later, disaster did strike. Patriots cornerback Asante Samuel intercepted Peyton Manning's pass and returned it 39 yards for a touchdown. 21-3. The crowd was stunned. It was like every other playoff game against New England. So far. Before the game, I had been in the locker room watching Lovie Smith's Chicago Bears play the New Orleans Saints in the early game, immediately before ours. When the Saints fell behind by 18 points, I said to myself, "That's 3 scores. This game's over," and headed out to our warm-up, feeling that the Bears were definitely going to the Super Bowl with that kind of insurmountable lead. For some reason, the fact that we were now trailing by 18 points and needed 3 scores ourselves didn't seem a hopeless situation. The irony that didn't hit me until much later. Although the crowd was stunned, our players did not seem to be. I don't know exactly why, but I knew Jeff Saturday had been right. We were still in the second quarter, and while 21-3 was not where we wanted to be, we could score quickly, like many times in the past. I went over to the offense before the kickoff and told them not to get their heads down. Last night, Jeff said it was our time. It's still our time. They all nodded. We're going to win this game. We took the ball and marched down for a field goal. The score was 21-6 at the half. In the locker room at halftime, I said, "Guys, we're faced the same situation against the same team in 2003, right here in the same dome. The only difference is we were down by 21 points then. Now we're down by only 15. We came all the way back in that game and had a chance to win from the 1-yard line on the last play of the game. We're going to be in that situation again. So get your sword ready, because this time we're going to win." I really believed we were going to win, and my team knew I believed it. We scored a touchdown to start the half, 21-13. We got the ball back after a New England punt, drove down the field again, and scored another touchdown, 21-19. Ordinarily, I would have just kicked the extra point, given all the time that remained. But we had practiced a 2-point play, and we thought we could execute it against the Patriots. After a quick prayer, I decided I'd rather play from a tie. Our 2-point conversion worked, 21-21. This was a great comeback, but the tie didn't last long. New England ran back the kickoff 80 yards and scored 5 plays later, 28-21. We drove right back down the field ourselves. On their 2-yard line, our running back Dominic Rhodes fumbled, and the ball went into the end zone. Jeff Saturday fell on the ball for the tying touchdown. This game was certainly different. 2 touchdowns on fumble recoveries by offensive linemen, 28-28. It was our time. We traded field goals, and then New England kicked another to take a 34-31 lead with 3:49 left in the game. New England had the ball and needed only 1 first down to ice the game. Uncharacteristically, they made a mistake on that critical play. They had 12 men in a huddle, an automatic 5-yard penalty. They were unable to get their first down and punted it back to us with 2:17 to go. Every quarterback dreams of being in a situation like this, and Peyton met the challenge. He marched us down New England's 2-yard line. Along the way, Reggie Wayne then fumbled after catching a pass during the drive. I didn't see it. I was focusing on a flag thrown by the official in the backfield away from Reggie, but I heard the collective gasp from the crowd. Moments later, I saw the replay on the scoreboard screen as the ball shot straight into the air in the middle of the 4 Patriots, only to be plucked from the air by Reggie as he is being pulled down. We would have gotten the ball back anyway, since the penalty was on New England. Somehow this felt different than all the other games that had ended in disaster. It was our time. Finally, we faced 3rd down with 1 minute and 2 seconds remaining. If we didn't score a touchdown on that play, we would still have 4th down to kick a field goal and tie the game. I thought back to all the practices and all the times we'd come up short against New England. I thought about a year earlier at 12-0 when Jamie had asked if he could be the one with me on the field at the Super Bowl. The sharp pain of his death struck again, but I forced myself to return to the moment. I tell guys to hang on to memories, but to live in the moment because we never know what will happen down the road. I refocused. Right now, at this moment, I told myself, we're here. Have faith, faith in our guys, faith in the journey, faith in the practices, principles, and priorities that got us here. Faith in God, who had carried me through, both personally and professionally. I was sure we would score. Peyton took the snap, Jeff Saturday had a great block on their nose tackle, and a hole opened up like a path in the Red Sea. Joseph Addy carried the ball into the end zone, 38-34. The Giant was down on the ground, but we knew the game wasn't over yet. The Patriots needed a touchdown, and they still had a minute left. Our Colts fans were caught up in the drama and intensity of the moment. The dome had never been louder. Even so, on the sidelines, I heard our defensive players tell each other, "Get out your sword." It was time to finish off the Giant. Our defense took the field. The Patriots were moving the ball. Tom Brady dropped back to pass and fired the ball, and nickelback Marlon Jackson intercepted. With the clock at 16 seconds, the Giant was down and out. People expect that winning the Super Bowl would be the biggest high, but for me, this day was it. To finally win a conference championship, to know that we would finally have the experience of playing in a Super Bowl, and to have done it right there at home in Indianapolis in front of our Colts fans. What a game. What a victory. What a feeling. Okay, so he says, what's better than winning the Super Bowl? Was finally winning that AFC championship game, right? He had wanted to for so many years, and he finally gets the opportunity to do it, right? He finally achieves that goal. And especially against New England, it made it even sweeter for him. Confetti was everywhere, in the air, in our hair, and on our clothes. Lauren and I stood on the podium with other Colts watching the trophy presentation. All over the field, I could see our coaches and their wives, our players and their kids, our staff and their families. We're going to the Super Bowl! Unbelievable. No one had left the stadium yet. I know. I checked the corners. Standing on the podium, I had about 2 minutes to think. So full of emotion, I was having trouble grasping our achievement. I thought of how we had lost to the Patriots to end our season in 2004 and 2003. Losing 41-0 and not being in your face enough. Cleaning out my office in Tampa, wondering if I'd ever coach again. Not getting any interviews in 1993. Being traded from the Steelers to the worst team in football. Lauren, my children, my parents, Jamie. A long journey. The Lord made this journey so awesome, even with all of its disappointments. It was incredibly emotional, thinking about all we'd come through together. For me, it wasn't even the Super Bowl itself that was the uppermost in my mind. It was the thought of the journey and the way we had persevered through it all, not giving up, staying the course. The phone calls from Chuck Knoll and Dick Vermeil saying, "Don't throw in the towel on what you believe in." Coach Knoll had always told me, being stubborn is a virtue when you're right. It's only a character flaw when you're wrong. Through all those years, I had believed that the principles I was holding to were right, that the way I wanted to build a team and win was good. So many people had told me I couldn't get where I wanted to go while doing it the way I thought it should be done. Through it all, however, I had stuck to my principles, and getting to that point with my team was deeply rewarding. On the podium, CBS broadcaster Jim Nantz asked me how we were able to come back and win the game. "We have a great group of guys who are very unified," I said. "But I think God orchestrated this in such a way that we can't take credit for it. We just want to thank Him for giving us the strength to persevere." Then he asked me what I thought about facing my close friend, Lovie Smith, in the Super Bowl. "I'm so proud that Lovie has taken the Bears to the Super Bowl as well," I said, "and meeting him there will make that game extra special. But this moment is about us, the Colts and the fans in Indianapolis." Indianapolis was wired, and so were we. 30 of us went to dinner, and the restaurant stayed open for us until 4 a.m. We sat there together, our extended family, children and all, talking and laughing, enjoying the moment and all that it meant. So this is really exciting for them. They win the AFC championship in Indianapolis, and he'll be facing his old friend Lovie Smith's team, the Chicago Bears, later on. Some people say it's a letdown to finally reach a destination, but for us, reaching the Super Bowl was even more exhilarating than I had anticipated. That may be because it hadn't really been my focus. All along, my focus had been on doing the things I thought was right, walking where I felt the Lord was guiding. Sure, I absolutely wanted to reach the Super Bowl, but I always tried to keep that goal in its proper place in my life. With the Lord beside me, I felt certain that whatever was supposed to happen was going to happen. He didn't call me to be successful in the world's eyes. He called me to be faithful. I was bound and determined to stay with our schedule. On Monday, the day after the AFC Championship game, the coaches met to watch our game film as we always did. On Tuesday, we put together our game plan. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we reviewed our game plan with the players. It was work as usual. Then I gave everybody the weekend off. I didn't want anyone to be at the Colts facility on Saturday or Sunday. Jordan and Jade had a weekend basketball games at the YMCA, so we took those in as a family. It was the first weekend off for our team in more than 3 months. 3 Colts players, Adam Vinatieri, Anthony McFarland, and Ricky Prohl, had all been to the Super Bowl before, so I asked them to address the team before we left for Miami, because Miami is where the Super Bowl was taking place. They each did a great job setting the expectation level for our team. Going to the Super Bowl was fun and an unforgettable experience, but the point of the game was to win. We flew to Miami on Monday night. Some members of the media were upset that we hadn't traveled there on Sunday, but I wanted our players to enjoy some family time, holding off the media hype as long as possible. Tuesday is the big media day when the coaches and players handle interviews for television, radio, and other news outlets. On Wednesday, we started practicing with an eye on the Bears. I didn't want our guys to think anything superhuman would be required. Again, I tried to stick to our routine. Regardless of the stakes, I said that we didn't need more than 3 days to get ready for a game. Do what we do, as much as possible, anyway, in the Super Bowl environment. Our players and coaches were able to bring family and friends to our last walkthrough practice at the Dolphins facility on Saturday to take pictures, see the field, and just enjoy that experience. We anticipated that each player would bring his dad or a brother. We ended up filling 7 charter buses. I had the privilege of bringing a couple of my high school coaches, including Coach Driscoll and my brother Lyndon, and my brothers-in-law Lauren and Wesley. It was a surprisingly emotional time for a number of us and our guests. My dad would have enjoyed it. Actually, I'm sure he did. On Saturday night, I addressed the team as I usually did, calmly. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a storm in Dolphin Stadium, I told them. We might get off to a slow start and have to claw our way back, but we can do it. We will do it. Do what we do. Don't panic. Stay the course. Remember New England? They overwhelmed us with a tsunami of points in that second quarter. We trailed for 59 minutes in that game, but in the final minute, we showed everyone that it was our time. Once again, it's our time. I believe God has prepared the leaders of our team for this time. Over the last 4 years, starting in 2003, we have had the most wins in football, yet each season has ended in disappointment. Until this one. Guys, it's our time. I shared with them what had gone through my mind standing on the podium in Indianapolis after the game. We have not traveled an easy road as a team or individuals, but we have never wavered in our beliefs. Our perseverance put us on this doorstep. It's our time. Let's go win a championship. On Sunday morning, Clyde and I went out for our usual hour-long walk, but 2 factors conspired to throw us off our routine. First, we were having a good time reminiscing about all the coaches and players in Tampa and Indianapolis we had known over the years. Some memories made us laugh, others made us more reflective. We were so caught up in those stories, we weren't paying much attention to where we were going. Added to that, we had switched our hotels on Saturday night to a getaway hotel in order to escape the madness of the regular hotel. As best as we could figure later, we took a left when we needed to go right. Our 1-hour walk lasted almost 3. During that extra time, I gave some thought to my post-game comments, win or lose. The Super Bowl is great, but it's not the greatest thing. My focus over the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl was Matthew 16:26, in which Jesus asks, "And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul?" And Tony Dungy has told us previously that that is his favorite Bible verse. What would you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Our guys could gain all the accolades and success of this world, yet lose touch with their priorities, their principles, and the God who loves them. I knew that if my faith was that central to me, giving me such hope and joy and peace, it would be irresponsible for me not to share it on possibly the biggest platform I would have in my life. I had used every opportunity I could to do just that in the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. I believe that was one of the reasons the Lord had allowed me to be the head coach there that week. I also thought about what it meant for me to be one of the first 2 African American head coaches in the Super Bowl. This was going to be a historic game, and I was so glad to share the honor with Lovey, who coaches the same way I do and shares the same values. We didn't want the focus to be on us individually, but we also knew how meaningful the game would be to Black America. So many had coached in the league before me, yet so few had gotten the opportunity to be a head coach. Times had definitely improved across the league and in society, and yet I still felt a burden to do more, to continue to do all I could do to level the playing field for everyone. I knew Lovey Smith echoed that. Some of my daughter's professors at Spelman College told Tiara before the game, "This is why we marched on Selma, to see your dad standing up there." And all those who had gone before me in other walks of life, like my dad, paved the way for me and for those who will come after me. I wanted to win so I could open people's eyes to the fact that skin color doesn't matter, and to give other guys a chance when I could. I was proud of my accomplishments, but they weren't mine alone. I was pleased that children from every segment of society, some with hope, some without, might see that you can overcome society's racial limitations. Maybe now they would believe in themselves, in the God who created them, to reach for the dreams they held in their hearts. I was also thrilled for older generations who thought they might never see the day that an African American would ever hold up the Lombardi Trophy. I hoped they would cherish the moment as if it were their dream, whether the winning coach ended up being Lovey or me. It had also been a great week in terms of some of the other values that Lovey and I shared. Athletes in Action had approached us about taking out a full-page ad in USA Today on our faith. An individual was willing to donate the funds for the ad if we would do it. Lovey readily agreed with me, and AIA also set up a website that contained the ad content. That site received thousands of hits on the first day it went public. In some ways, I thought, it's just football. At the same time, I knew it was a landmark, another step on our nation's history, and a memorable day for Black Americans. But as excited as I was about Lovey's presence at the Super Bowl and the joint appearances we had made all week, once the game began, I never had a second thought about Lovey being on the other sideline. So when he takes this wrong turn on his walk that he always does before the games, he starts reflecting back on the season, what he would do if he's up on that podium, win or lose. And he realizes, like, man, like what a platform I have by making it to the Super Bowl. First, like as a African-American head coach, right? A lot of people have dreamed of being in this spot, and I can show them like, hey, right, skin color doesn't matter. Right? Like if you work hard, like you can achieve your dreams. And so what a great platform for that. And then the other major platform that he was going to use it for is for his faith, right? To share the Lord with people. And the other head coach, Lovey Smith of the Chicago Bears, was also a Christian. So they take out this full page ad in a newspaper, USA Today, right, to share their faith with others. And so what a cool platform seen by millions and millions of people for both of those causes that are very dear to his heart. An actual storm hit early in the day on Sunday, and the rain began to fall. It poured all day, making ours the first Super Bowl ever played in the rain. All in all, it was definitely a unique moment in NFL history. Even the pregame introductions were special as we waited in the tunnel. Being introduced as the AFC champions, the Indianapolis Colts, was a powerful moment for me. People sometimes ask me who my bodyguard is with me at big games. It's my brother-in-law, Lauren's twin, Lauren, not to be confused with my sister, Lauren. The same Lauren who had trembled with suppressed excitement on the sidelines in 1997 in Detroit. Even though wireless headsets had been used for years, Lauren, my bodyguard, stood by my side at the Super Bowl as a football storm hit us on the opening kickoff. Devin Hester of the Bears returned the kickoff for a touchdown. One play and we were down 7-0, just like Bethel Johnson. Would I never learn? Actually, I would. We didn't kick the ball to Hester again that night. Once again, we were off to a slow start, which continued for a while on offense. Then safety Bob Sanders changed the feeling on our sideline with a huge hit on Bears running back Cedric Benson, a hit that knocked the ball loose. Win the giveaway-takeaway battle, remember? And change the momentum of the game. We scored to tie the game, and then the Bears scored their final touchdown of the game, all in the second quarter. We led 16-14 by halftime, in spite of the fact that Adam Vinatieri shocked us all by missing his first field goal of the postseason. We felt good heading into the locker room with the lead, even though we hadn't played mistake-free football, and we would never trail again. We just kept plugging away, staying with our plan, doing what we do. Our defense was playing really well, but we couldn't put the game out of reach for a while. We were leading 22-17 early in the fourth quarter when Kelvin Hayden intercepted a pass from Bears quarterback Rex Grossman and returned it for a touchdown to a 29-17 lead. When Bob Sanders intercepted a pass on the next series, it continued the ongoing theme of the postseason in which our defense, rather than our offense, was making the big plays for us. Time was growing short for Chicago, and we still held a 2-score lead. Okay, so that's neat that their defense are the ones that are stepping up and making the really big plays for them. And I think he's mentioned that before in the last chapter or two, where their defense has really stepped up this season and made some awesome plays. And here they are in the Super Bowl doing this again for them. Later in the fourth quarter, we again chose to have Dominic Rhodes run the ball to run down the clock and ice the game. This time, however, unlike the divisional playoff game in Baltimore, I chose not to kick the field goal on fourth down. I was convinced that our defense would stop them and certain they wouldn't score twice, and I was determined not to give the Bears any other opportunities to score. When the clock showed a minute remaining and I knew the Bears couldn't score twice, I began to think about how the whole journey had unfolded. I thought about how it wouldn't have been possible without my parents and how much fun it would have been to have them there. I thought about Mr. Rockamore and the older guys in my neighborhood who looked out for me and kept me on the right track because they thought that I could do something with my athleticism. I thought about my Steelers teammates and Coach Knoll and all the things I had learned from him. I thought about Tom Lampier talking about what it would take to lead a group of men well. And I thought about Jim Irsay and that 15-minute phone monologue 5 years earlier, just when I was thinking God was moving me out of football. Jim had been so sure we could win it all, and that I was the person to coach his team. I couldn't wait for him to get up on that podium and receive that trophy. I thought of all those things in those few seconds, and then came Gatorade. Unlike in Tampa, when merely changing the mindset in the organization warranted a Gatorade bath at 6 and 10, this was the first time the guys in Indianapolis had showered me with it. Although they never said it, the leaders in Indianapolis recognized that this was the kind of team we had, a team talented enough for their barometer of success to be the Super Bowl. Stay the course. Do what we do. It had finally paid off in the final game, and Lauren, along with Ricky Thomas, picked me up to carry me off the field in true Harris fashion. After the guys let me down from their shoulders, I thought about how disappointed Lovey must be. I knew he would be gracious, and when we hugged on the field, he was. I told him they had a great team, and I was proud of how the week went. "You'll get one of these very soon," I whispered in his ear as he grabbed me in a hug, and I believed that. The next thing I knew, I was doing a Disney World commercial, and then I made my way to the podium. I began to realize just how historic this moment really was. I thought of other African American coaches who might have done this had they gotten the chance, and I said a prayer, thanking God for allowing me to have this experience of winning. Getting to the podium was not easy. The place was a madhouse. Lauren had been sitting in the stands rather than in a suite, and although security told me they would be able to get her down to me, I wasn't so sure. When I looked around, however, she was suddenly there. We went up to the podium together, and then Tiara joined us. As we watched the celebrations all around us, we just kept looking at each other and repeating, "We did it. We did it. We did it." So how exciting is this? Like, after all of these years of coaching, and even at one point thinking that he wasn't meant to coach anymore, Tony Dungy not only finally makes it to the Super Bowl, but does achieve this dream of winning the Super Bowl. And so this is just his time of like reflection as all of the celebrations are taking place. I used to receive painful letters, not very often, thankfully, when I was the defensive coordinator of the Vikings and still opened my own mail. The letters may still come occasionally now, but if they do, they are intercepted before they ever hit my desk. They usually arrived with no return address and contained insensitive racist words of hate. As I held the Lombardi Trophy after winning the Super Bowl, I hoped the people who had written those letters were watching. I hoped their hearts had changed. I didn't want to be an icon. I wanted to provide hope. I wanted my experience to open people's eyes to the opportunities available to us all. Not necessarily just opportunities in football, although I'll certainly keep looking for those, but any opportunity to knock down the walls that divide us. That's how God wants it to be. As we stood on the podium, I thought of my mom and my dad. Oh, how I wish they could have been there, celebrating in the rain with us. But I carried their memories in my heart. Memories of Bible stories and fishing, and of their watching the only other Super Bowl I was in when I was a player for the Steelers in 1978. Miami, both times. Doesn't God have a sense of timing? I thought of Jamie too, the rain on my face mixing with tears. I always tell grieving parents to cherish the good memories they have. I know that Jamie is in heaven, and I wouldn't want to take him from there even if I could. What remains with me are the memories, warm and wonderful memories. At first, they were too painful to think about, but I've come to realize that they're a gift, a healing gift. And so we press on. We press on with our memories, our hearts buoyed by a God who loves us and wants us to know him deeply. We press on with our own sense that life's not always fair. And we press on with the knowledge and assurance that even though we can't see all of God's plan, he is there, at work and in charge, loving us. We press on with the conviction that even though we don't deserve the gifts and blessings we've been given, he gives them anyway. We press on into an abundant life on earth, followed by an eternity with God. Someday in the not-too-distant future, no time here on earth is all that distant when measured against eternity. I'll be reminiscing with all my loved ones, talking of fishing or the Super Bowl or that stray dog that Jamie brought home or just how many children we end up adopting or getting fined for my outburst after the Giants game. And my dad will probably ask me if I still think venting really helped. So he reflects back on life and all the beautiful memories and people that have helped him get to where he has along the way. And so it's just like a really sweet time for him to have finally accomplished his goal of winning the Super Bowl against the Chicago Bears.